automatically. Okay. What do we put here? In other words, we are now executing line 11 the first time. It has two invoked atoms. So what do?
You do one.
We do one at a time, right? And the convention is we always evaluate from left to right. So we have to handle the first atom call first, or the first invoked atom, and then when we're done, we will deal with the second one. Okay? So that means you only pick the one that you're invoking. You only replace that with a question mark. You leave the other one exactly the way it is in this case. Okay? So that means if I want to capture that information in the return info, I would say this is on line 11. R gets the value of question mark in this case because I'm invoking the one on the left-hand side first. But the one on the right-hand side of the plus will just be spelled out exactly the same way as it should, or as it is. Just like that. Is that okay so far? Okay, you only replace the invocation that you're dealing with at that point. The rest of the line, you just leave it the way it is. That's the trick of this particular trace. And then you have to set up the parameters, H, V, and R, just like before. And what would be H in this case? H is passed to H, so H does not change. 2 is fine. What about V? V minus 1 is passing to V, so this V, which is 4, it will now become 3. R is a local variable, so that's why it is a question mark, because we don't know exactly the value of a local variable until we get into the subroutine and have it initialized. So are there any questions about the second invocation of the subroutine atom? No questions? Okay. Probably it's a good idea to split the screen. Oh, the other way. Okay. And I'm missing something. I'm missing the line number for the invocation, am I? Or did I put it on somewhere else? Oh, okay, it's just the column is too wide. I confused myself. Here we go. Okay, so we go back to the beginning part of the subroutine again, starting on line 5. V equals 1 is false. Then we move on to line 8. X equals 1 or H equals V is false. So we go to line 11 again, and guess what? Copy and paste for the most part. So every time you copy and paste, you have to remember to change the parts that you should not be pasting. In this case, it has to do with the value of V. So V minus 1 will turn this V to 2. And I'm pretty sure most of you can tell already that we can stop one recursion at this point. So we say optimal width, just like that. And then we continue tracking the execution starting on line 5. Line 5 is still asking V equals 1. It's false. Go to line 8. X equals 1 or X equals V is this time true because X does equal to V this time. Then we have to go to line 9, which is easy. Wrong one. We go to line 9, which is the easy one because we are just going to initialize R with a value of 1. And then after that, we get out of the inside conditional statement, and that will immediately also exit the outside conditional statement, and so we end up on line 14. Line 14 is a return statement, so all that does is to copy and paste the return info cell, replace the single question mark with, in this case, R, and R is 1, so that's all we do when we return. And then on line 15, we clean up all the columns and say that these columns are no longer in use, just like that. And since these columns are no longer in use, we have to go back to the columns that we were using before, and then we go back to line 11 to continue the execution of line 11. Is that okay so far? Okay.
Copy and paste.
What does line 11 look like now? It's exactly like this. Okay? So we copy and paste it down here. Okay, because we are invoking atom again on line 11. So that means we have to say this is the column for return info. We have H, V, and also R. R is usually unknown. That's the easy part. But this time we are taking care of the second invocation. In other words, my cursor just covered the whole thing. So this time we want to make H minus 1 pass to H and V minus 1 pass to V. Okay, because I have to read this code before pasting it here. Copy, paste. But this time, since we are invoking the second part, so the second part is now replaced with a single question mark. Is that okay? And we also have to figure out what is H and V. H, okay, that has to depend on this H here, so H becomes 1, V becomes 2. Is that okay? Not okay? We're dealing with the second part of the invocation, which is passing H minus 1 to H, so H was 2, so the new invocation will have H equals to 1, and we're also passing V minus 1 to V. Since V was 3, it is now 2. Okay? Is that part okay so far?
Yes.
Okay. So now we go back to the beginning part of the subroutine, starting on line 5. Line 5 is asking, does V equal to 1? No. We move on to line 8. Does H equal to 1 or H equal to V? Yes. Okay, H does equal to 1 in this case. So then we go to line 9. Oh, yeah. Yep. So we go to line 9. What does line 9 do? R equals to 1. So we change R to 1. And then that exits the inside conditional statement, which immediately will exit the outside conditional statement going to line 14. Line 14 is a return statement, just returns R. So we take the return info, copy and paste it, replace the question mark with whatever value we are returning, but do not evaluate 1 plus 1 at this point. And then we move on to line 15, which says, okay, let's clean up because these columns are no longer in use. Then we return to line 11. Now, line 11 looks like this. R gets 1 plus 1. Can we do that without any invocation? Yeah, 1 plus 1 is 2. So we update R to 2 at this point. That. What do we do after line 11? Nothing. We're done with the conditional statement in the inside, and we're also done with the conditional statement on the outside. So we go to line 14, and line 14 is this one here. We're returning R, and R is 2. So we take this whole thing, we paste it here, and then replace the question mark with a value of 2. Okay? Then we move on to line 15. Line 15 is going to say, okay, these columns are no longer in use. And of course, it's not going to work because I turned on the wrapping feature.
Do we delete it?
Yeah, we can just separately use that just as well. Okay. So after this, we have to go back to line 11 again, but the context is now switched back to the earlier point. Right? And then line 11.